I knew we were circling the corporate drain the moment I walked in and found a stranger's sneakers, muddy knockoff Yeezys, planted on my desk like it was a goddamn footrest at a frat party. My chair, my ergonomic, lumbar-supporting throne I'd guarded like Fort Knox, was occupied by a 25-year-old man-child with frosted tips, a vape pen, and the self-awareness of a goldfish. He grinned, big and dumb, and said, "Yo, you must be Donna. Pop said you'd be chill." Then, because hell has no fury like nepotism with Wi-Fi, he pulled out his phone, angled it like he was launching a thirst trap, and snapped a selfie from my desk. Not near it, not beside it, from it. Then he posted it to Instagram with the caption, "Finally running this place." That's when my heart didn't sink, it calcified. Because I'd seen this kind of clown before. You don't spend 16 years turning a third-rate warehouse tracking system into a multi-million-dollar logistics platform without meeting every flavor of executive scum. The empty suit, the idea thief, the visionary who couldn't operate a stapler without a tutorial. But Chase was a new breed. He wasn't pretending to be competent. He wasn't even pretending to care. He was flaunting his ignorance like it came with stock options. And here's the thing. I wasn't mad. Not yet. I was still. Ice in your veins still. The kind of calm that comes from knowing you already laid the trap months ago, when you were the only person reading the fine print at 2 a.m. while the rest of the exec team was toasting their Series C round with overpriced mezcal. Clause 7, page 46. Buried under a mountain of acquisition boilerplate, any instance of reputational harm, misrepresentation of executive access, or breach of confidentiality by an employee or associated party may result in immediate contract termination at the buyer's sole discretion. And Chase, bless his tiny, unwrinkled brain, had just publicly declared on record, timestamped geotag, that he was running the place. From my desk, in my chair, on day one of the damn acquisition. Now I know what you're thinking, why didn't I lose it? Flip the desk, go full viral meltdown, because I'm Donna. I don't shout, I forward emails. But before I tell you what I did next, and believe me, it was surgical, can I just say something real quick? If you're listening to this and you haven't subscribed yet, come on. 90% of you just float through like Chase in a staff meeting, and it breaks my cold, petty little heart. Hit that subscribe button, like the story. It tells the team this stuff matters. That our late nights, our endless rewrites, our caffeine-induced spirals into revenge monologues, they're worth it. Okay, let's keep going. I didn't even make eye contact with him after the post. I just walked to the copy room, printed out the acquisition packet I'd memorized 3 months ago, highlighted clause 7 in neon pink, and slid it into an interoffice envelope with one sticky note. Per this clause, see attached. Then I attached the Instagram screenshot, complete with location, timestamp, and his smug mug grinning like a discount Backstreet Boy. I sent it to legal. CC'd no one. BCC'd everyone. Walked back to my office, correction, the office I used to have, and packed a single box. Not the dramatic kind, either. Just my framed photo of my dog, a USB with version history of the system architecture, and my favorite mug that said, "I survived another meeting that could have been an email." I left my badge on Chase's new desk. His feet were still up, he didn't even notice. HR saw me walking out and gave a little wave. "Taking a half day?" One of them chirped. Something like that, I said. They didn't know. No one did, not yet. But the thing about systems, especially the ones I design, is that they always log who's sitting at the console when the detonation button gets pushed. And Chase, he had just leaned all the way in. I walked out of that building like a ghost, silent and already gone. No one ran after me. No one asked questions. The acquisition hadn't even gone public yet. But by the time they figured out what Clause 7 meant, it'd be too late. Let the circus begin. I took the long way to my car, past the side lot where the loading dock buzzed like it always did, trucks backing in, forklifts beeping like a dying pager. I'd built half the scheduling logic that kept that dock from turning into a demolition derby. No one out there knew my name. That was the point. I didn't need to be liked. I just needed the system to run. Back inside, the email was already sent. The subject line, Clause 7 reputational breach. No pleasantries, no emojis, just one screenshot, one quote from the merger agreement, and a line of text. Per clause referenced, public misrepresentation of authority observed. See attached. The kind of email that doesn't just land in legal's inbox, it detonates in it. I closed my laptop, didn't wipe it, didn't slam it, just shut it like the lid on a coffin. My badge, left it face up on the desk. I wanted Chase to see my name when he finally realized what he'd stepped into. He'd probably prop it up on the corner and use it as a coaster for his Celsius. HR was in the hallway, giggling about someone's gluten-free birthday cake. I walked by with my banker's box, nodded, kept it moving. "You okay, Donna?" asked Kim from Benefits, eyes widening. "Just needed a little air," I smiled. "I'll be back." She gave me a thumbs up like I was going to yoga, not corporate war. They didn't know. But they would. Oh, they would. I drove to the storage unit I kept for consulting paperwork. The kind no one at the company ever asked about because no one ever thought to. I opened the filing cabinet and pulled out the binder I'd prepped the day the acquisition talks first started buzzing around Slack like an airborne STD. I'd labeled it in Sharpie, in case of dumbussery. Bold, underlined. Inside, duplicate patent filings. Independent licensing documentation. My LLC registration paperwork, quietly formed 2 years ago when Martin Vance's name first popped up on a shareholder call as an outside advisor with visionary potential. I'd seen how these things go. The visionary shows up, the engineers disappear, and before long, you're being told to lean in while your server room gets outsourced to some Latvian teenager with a Raspberry Pi. So I'd built my exits. Quiet ones. Smart ones. Every operational system I'd ever touched had a heartbeat. Piece of code, a license token, a middleware dependency that was mine. Owned by my LLC, used with permission. Permission that could be revoked, at will, with 24 hours notice. The buyer didn't know that yet, but they would. Because the moment Clause 7 triggered their out clause, they'd be looking for a clean path forward. One without Martin. One without Chase. One that didn't involve handing their industrial future to a trust fund influencer with a ring light. And when that moment came, they'd realize the architecture they loved didn't belong to the company. Not technically, not entirely, it belonged to me. I pulled my phone from my coat pocket and opened my private email. One folder, Merger Watch. Inside it, every NDA, every contract red line, every timestamped update on implementation progress. I scrolled through it like a vacation album from hell. 4 months ago, when the integration planning started, I'd been asked to streamline vendor relationships. Translation, make everything digestible for the incoming CEO's frat bros, so I rewrote everything. But I didn't just streamline, I isolated. I created a dependency stack that ran through my LLC. Modular, elegant, and legally bulletproof. No one noticed. They just saw faster load times and thought the cloud fairy had paid them a visit. By the time I closed the storage unit and drove home, adrenaline had settled. No rage, no panic. Just that quiet, glacial calm that comes when you know you're holding the only lifeboat on a sinking yacht and everyone else is still arguing over who gets the corner office. I made tea jasmine with honey, sat by the window and watched the emails start pinging in. The first one was from legal, confirming receipt, reviewing immediately. Then from procurement, can you clarify licensing ownership of the new analytics layer? There it was. The avalanche hadn't started yet, but I could hear the crack forming. The first quiet shift of snow high up on the mountain, and once it fell, they'd come knocking. Not with apologies, not yet, with panic, which was exactly what I was waiting for. The legal team didn't even finish their second coffee before someone in the east wing of compliance stood up and muttered, "Oh, hell no." Donna's name carried weight in the kind of quiet way that made interns straighten their posture and directors reread their drafts. So when an email from her landed in the shared and oversight inbox with the subject line Clause 7 reputational breach, the whole room went still. Even Barbara, the lifer paralegal who once redlined a prenup at her own wedding, froze mid-sip. At first, they thought it was a mistake. Surely not that Clause 7. But then they opened the PDF. One screenshot. Chase's smug face, grinning from Donna's desk like a boy king with that now immoral caption. Finally running this place. Timestamped, public, verified. Posted while he was physically inside the building during an active acquisition window before the deal had closed. Oh my God, someone whispered. Clause 7 wasn't decorative. It was written by the buyer's lawyers, inserted after 3 weeks of negotiations, 2 all-nighters, and one very memorable shouting match about executive conduct standards. It was created for exactly this kind of nightmare, reputational fallout caused by internal idiocy. A nuclear eject button. The wording was brutal and clear. Any executive or affiliated party causing reputational harm or misrepresenting operational control, whether explicitly or by implication, constituted grounds for immediate contract withdrawal. At the buyer's sole discretion. No appeals, no renegotiation, just click, deal gone. They huddled around the printer as the hard copy came out like a court summons. Highlighted in yellow, bolded in red pen, running this place. One of the junior counsels actually asked, maybe he meant it ironically. Barbara didn't even look up. Irony doesn't hold in court, she said. Intent doesn't matter, perception does. And perception just went viral. The problem wasn't just the caption. It was who posted it, where he posted it, and when. The son of the brand new CEO, on day one of an acquisition, from the SVP of Systems desk, the same SVP who had quietly handled the core architecture of every system the buyer was acquiring. Chase had essentially declared himself in charge of something he had zero legal, technical, or operational control over. He did it with the digital footprint of a Labrador on espresso, geotags, timestamps, even the IP address pinged from the company network. They ran a background sweep. It took 15 minutes. Chase's socials were a parade of wealth flexing, shirtless gym selfies, and poorly spelled takes on entrepreneurship. The post had already been reposted on a VC meme account with 120,000 followers. The buyer's lawyers would see it within the hour. If they hadn't already, one of the M&A partners pulled up the Slack transcript from the initial Clause 7 negotiations and groaned. "We fought to keep this clause in," he muttered. Vance almost pulled the whole deal over it. He said it was needlessly paranoid. A silence fell over the room. It was the kind of silence that follows the slow realization. We've stepped on the landmine, and now we're just waiting for the foot to come off. by 10:23 a.m. Legal team had escalated the issue to Martin Vance himself. The email subject line, urgent, clause 7 triggered buyer exposure risk. They attached the screenshot, quoted the clause in full, added language like material breach, exposure risk, and contract nullification. Sent it with read receipts on. By 10:27, Martin marked it read. By 10:29, he hadn't responded, which only made them more nervous. Because when the CEO doesn't reply to that email, you're not dealing with leadership. You're dealing with a man calculating how fast he can lie before the floor collapses. They started forwarding the email up the board chain. No commentary, just the subject line and the image. Directors on both coasts started replying with one-liners. Is this a joke? Who approved this? Who is Chase? Why is Donna gone? No one had answers, because the only person who would have had them had already walked out the door. And by the time they realized how quiet it had gotten without her, the damage wasn't creeping in, it was galloping. By 11:15 a.m., the buyer went silent, like someone had unplugged the entire deal. Integration calls were abruptly canceled. Calendar invites vanished mid-refresh. The shared Slack channel with their transition team, which had been buzzing for weeks with polite emojis and looking forward to onboarding. Chatter turned into a digital tombstone. No messages, no typing indicators, just the creeping quiet of high-level lawyers closing ranks. The first official message came through at 11:32 a.m., a terse email from the buyer's external counsel addressed to Martin Vance, CCing half the known universe. Subject, urgent clarification request social media post. Attached body. We have become aware of a public social media post referencing operational control of company name from an individual not listed on the transition org chart. Please advise. 1. The identity and title of Chase. 2. His current role and responsibilities. 3. Whether the statement finally running this place was made in jest or represents an internal shift in authority. You're halting integration discussions pending written clarification. No greeting, no signature block quote, just legal knives on the table. Martin didn't respond for 15 minutes. When he finally did, it was exactly what you'd expect from a man who thought Instagram clout outweighed corporate governance. He wrote, "The individual in question is my son, Chase Vance. He has no formal title or authority within the organization." The post was an unfortunate attempt at humor and does not reflect the views or operational structure of company name. We are addressing the matter internally. Please advise next steps. He didn't deny it, he just tried to shrink it. Pretend like it was a rogue joke, a harmless oopsie from a 20-something who didn't know better. But by that point, Chase Vance wasn't just a name. He was a goddamn cautionary tale trending on LinkedIn, because screenshots don't get deleted. And the second someone flagged the post to a mid-tier logistics influencer, God help us, they exist, it took off like a 5-alarm fire at a paper mill. Within the hour, the caption was circulating under hashtags like #NepoCEO, #DueDiligenceMatters, and #This is why we have clauses. The buyer's internal group chat, which Donna still had quiet access to through a mirrored credential she'd never surrendered, was melting down. One message from their head of risk said it all. Is this a joke? They let the CEO's son sit at the SVP's desk on DAY1? Chase, blissfully unaware of the geopolitical mess he'd caused, was still wandering around the office barefoot, complaining about the cold brew selection and asking how to log into the admin thingy. When Martin finally called him into his glass-walled office and hissed, delete the post. Now, Chase blinked like a confused possum and said why? It got like 800 likes. Martin grabbed his phone and yanked it from his hand, but it didn't matter. The internet had already feasted. Screenshots had been archived, reposted, and cross-posted. One of them was even overlaid with that mock inspirational quote background, the kind usually reserved for sunsets and Eleanor Roosevelt. Only this time, it said, finally running this place Chase. Day 1 with a clown emoji as the watermark. The buyer's silence grew more ominous. Their legal team sent another note at 2:06 p.m. Pending resolution of this issue, all onboarding activities are suspended. Please refrain from contacting our implementation team until further notice. The panic in the building was spreading now. Directors paced hallways, murmuring about indemnity exposure. Integration lead was spotted in the restroom Googling, can a clause really cancel a deal? But Martin, he still believed he could power smile through it. Still thought his handshake charm and PowerPoint charisma could override a paper trail of arrogance. He stood in front of the exec team that afternoon and said, let's not overreact. This is optics. It's not structural. We still have leverage. Someone coughed. Quietly, because even the interns knew, leverage doesn't come from pretending nothing happened. Leverage comes from knowing who controls the foundation. And Donna had already walked off with the blueprints. The emergency board call was scheduled for 4:00 p.m. sharp. By 3:59, 5 of the directors were already in the virtual waiting room, mics off, cameras dark, breathing heavy like they were preparing for a televised firing squad. The 6th joined from what looked like a golf cart, sunburned and furious. The seventh, Harold Kessler, the oldest and meanest among them, signed on last, squinting at the screen like it owed him money. Martin logged in with his corporate smile preloaded, Chase nowhere in sight. Thank God. Let's begin, he said, and immediately regretted it. We're not beginning anything, Martin, snapped Gloria Trask, head of risk oversight, tone flat as a gravestone. We're cleaning up. What we need to begin with, said Harold, tapping something off screen is an answer. Why the hell is your son posting from the desk of the SVP of Systems? Who gave him access? And why wasn't it revoked immediately? Martin adjusted his tie. There was no formal access granted. It was a casual visit. He didn't log into any systems. No one cares if he touched a keyboard, said Gloria. He posted a public statement implying executive control during an active acquisition. Do you understand what that looks like to the buyer? Martin exhaled through his nose. It was a misunderstanding. Do you understand what Clause 7 says? Asked Raj, dialing in from a client dinner. I mean, have you even read it since you signed the packet? Martin opened his mouth, but another voice cut in. Where's Donna? It was Cynthia Shaw, the board's most meticulous operator. Her tone was quiet, lethal. Why isn't she on this call? Martin blinked. Donna has stepped away briefly. She what? Said Harold. She's the only person who understands the operational integration stack. We can't answer a single buyer-side question without her. I'll reach out to her directly, Martin said quickly. Don't bother, Gloria muttered. She already sent the buyer's lawyers that email. You think she's coming back for a meeting? There was a moment of quiet. Kind of quiet where everyone's eyes scanned the bottom of their screens, searching for a scapegoat. I'd like a list, Harold said finally, of every system she touched, every vendor contract she approved, every patent or license tied to her name or any entity she's affiliated with. Martin swallowed. We have some of that. Procurement is compiling, don't say some, Cynthia snapped. We're flying blind here. I just got off a call with Luxtech, the buyer's integration team. Asked 3 basic questions about the middleware structure, and we had no one who could answer. Martin tried to rally. Look, I'm handling it. We've got a strong foundation. The buyer will understand this was an isolated PR hiccup. Hiccup? Gloria cut in. You think this is a hiccup? The buyer just suspended all communication. That's not a hiccup, Martin. That's a chokehold. Raj leaned in, elbows on his desk. They've already pulled out of 3 scheduled site visits. Their tone has shifted. They're using words like governance failure and brand risk. This isn't just about Chase, it's about leadership or lack thereof. And you still haven't answered the basic question, Harold said, voice low and dangerous. Who let your kid into an executive desk on day 1 of a 9-figure acquisition? Who gave him a badge? Who gave him clearance? Martin hesitated. He borrowed my credentials. A silence fell so heavy. Felt like gravity itself was watching. Jesus Christ, someone whispered. It wasn't clear who. One of the junior board members who hadn't said a word until now unmuted her mic. So you're saying that not only did your unvetted, untrained son represent himself as an executive, but he did so using your login credentials? Martin didn't answer. He couldn't, because there was no answer. Not one that didn't sound like gross negligence wrapped in nepotistic delusion. The board broke into chaos, muted shouts, raised hands. One director abruptly left the call. Another turned their camera on just long enough to visibly shake their head before turning it back off. The CFO finally spoke, voice thin with disbelief. We don't even know who controls what anymore. Legal can't map the contracts without Donna. It's saying the analytics layer might be licensed through an external entity. The finance team is chasing ghosts. What entity? Harold barked. Who owns it? There was a pause. Then someone finally said the name, DM Strategic Systems. Donna's Consulting LLC. Silence again. This time it wasn't shock, it was surrender. Martin sat there, blinking, sweating. The walls weren't closing in. They were already gone. At 7:42 a.m. the next morning, a courier delivered a thick envelope to the company's legal department. It wasn't emailed. It wasn't pinged in Slack or Dropbox. Came by hand, wax seal. Signature required. Subject, Notice of Material Breach Clause 7 enforcement from Marston and Haller LLP, representing Luxtech Industrial Holdings. The cover letter was clinical, brutal, surgical. Based on documented public misrepresentation of authority, Luxtech exercises its contractual right to halt acquisition proceedings effective immediately. Pending internal investigation, our client reserves the right to terminate the agreement in full without financial penalty. No emojis, no softening language, just a full stop slap across the face, one Martin never saw coming because he still believed somehow that the narrative could be reframed. Legal brought the document straight to the executive floor. Martin scanned it, lips pressed into a grim line, skin pale as printer paper. It's not final, he mumbled. They invoked Clause 7, said Gloria flatly, tossing the second page onto the table. That is final. There is no renegotiation language. It's an eject lever. You pulled it. I didn't pull anything, Martin said. She did. But the trap Donna laid wasn't just a clever email. That was just the click of the mousetrap. The spring was still coming. By mid-morning, procurement had finally unearthed the full systems integration plan, the one Donna had filed during early merger preparations. It had been ignored at the time because too technical and Donna handles it. But now, it became required reading. And there it was, on page 14 of the appendix. a clause so dull and ordinary-looking you could sneeze past it if you weren't paying attention. All middleware components supporting operational analytics and vendor harmonization shall be licensed through DM Strategic Systems, LLC, with exclusive rights for deployment, adaptation, and modification. DM Strategic Systems, someone repeated slowly. Is that Donna? The answer, of course, was yes. Yes, it was Donna. Donna, who built every line of glue code keeping their systems from collapsing into a pile of spaghetti. Donna, who authored the failsafes, the vendor handshake logic, the patent-pending routing optimization engine that the buyer's team had called mission-critical in 3 separate emails. Donna, whose LLC was quietly written into the operating lifeblood of the acquisition, and no one had questioned it because it had been submitted by her, and who the hell questions Donna? Martin's face turned the color of uncooked shrimp. That was supposed to be scrubbed before submission. I asked Ops to sanitize that document. It's not scrubbed, said Harold, holding up a printed copy. It's filed, digitally time-stamped. Approved by 3 department heads and the merger task force. Martin stood. We can amend it, remove it, issue a revised plan. You're not listening, Gloria said, standing as well. The buyer already has this version. It was sent during the due diligence phase. They built their integration map on this plan. It's not just a draft, it's foundation. I was told we had editorial control, you had legal responsibility, snapped Cynthia, entering the room like a guillotine with a purse. And you handed them a blueprint with the keys in Donna's name. Martin turned to legal. Can we stop her? Legally, is she allowed to hold our architecture hostage? Legal flipped through the binder, sweat dotting the paralegal's forehead. Technically, we don't own the middleware layer. We license it from her LLC. Martin's voice cracked. Then cancel the license. She included a survivability clause, the attorney said, blinking like he couldn't believe the words coming out of his mouth. Even if the deal collapses, license terms remain enforceable. Revocation requires mutual consent. Martin sat down, hard. The silence in the room grew thick like wet wool. No one moved, no one dared breathe, because they all knew what had just happened. The deal wasn't simply halted. It had been checkmated, not by an angry board, not by a screaming buyer. By a woman who never raised her voice, never made a scene, and never fought for credit. Just control. And she had it. Every switch, every login key, every line of logic they had promised Luxtech. Hers. Martin closed his eyes, his shoulders slumped. No one said a word because there was nothing left to say. The email hit inboxes like a virus. Subject, update on acquisition timeline internal use only from Office of the CEO body. Due to recent developments, the integration with Luxtech is paused indefinitely. We are working closely with all stakeholders to resolve the matter swiftly. Please direct all inquiries to your department head. No explanation, no accountability. Just 6 lines of cold, vacuum-sealed PR that said everything and nothing at once. But the staff wasn't stupid. They didn't need a press release to smell the blood in the water. By noon, the whispers turned into full-volume hallway mutiny. Did Chase really post that? Is it true Donna owns the middleware? I heard Luxtech pulled out. My cousin works there, she said the deal's dead. By 3:00 p.m., half the open office had screenshots of the infamous selfie saved to their phones. One employee printed it out and taped it to the coffee machine with a new caption. Day 1 CEO, bringing us into the future, one blunder at a time. Martin had it taken down. Then someone put up a meme of Donna's empty office chair with the words, "You don't know what you have until it's leveraged against you." The boardroom turned into a bunker, phones on mute. Curtains drawn, the executive team huddled like hostages waiting for ransom terms. Martin paced like a cornered animal. Just make it go away, he barked at legal for the 5th time that day. Tell Luxtech we'll revise the documents. Issue a public apology. Spin it. Blame a rogue employee, whatever it takes. Legal looked like they'd aged 10 years in 2 days. The general counsel rubbed his temples and said, again, we can't. Clause 7 doesn't negotiate. It activates, they don't have to talk to us, they can walk away. Entirely. What about damages? Martin asked. Can we sue Donna for breach? She didn't breach anything. She followed every protocol, submitted every document, kept her LLC disclosure legal and visible. It was all in the appendix. Then bury it. Issue a retroactive redaction, Martin, the lawyer snapped, voice sharp for the first time. It was in their hands before you even knew what it meant. You handed them the grenade and your son pulled the pin. Martin turned to the CFO. What are we telling the investors? The CFO's mouth was a hard line. Nothing yet, but they're calling and they're pissed. How many? 6, 7, the big ones. They're not subtle about it either. They want answers. Vendor partners began to retreat. Contracts that had taken months to finalize were suddenly under re-evaluation. Support teams received a surge of ticket closures from third-party providers. IT was flooded with account termination requests. Even the internal catering vendor postponed next month's lunch service pending payment confirmation. One particularly blunt reply from a longtime logistics partner read simply, "We trusted Donna. We don't trust you. Call us when she's back." Martin sat down in his chair and rubbed his temples so hard it looked like he was trying to erase his own face. "We need to stabilize perception," he muttered. "Reassure the buyer we're still capable." "You're not hearing us," said Gloria, arms crossed so tight her knuckles turned white. "They don't want to be reassured. They want to leave. You gave them the legal opening, and your kid gave them the public justification. A full minute of silence passed. Then Cynthia, voice cool as an autopsy table, asked, "Why wasn't Chase on a formal employment contract?" Martin blinked. He was just shadowing, informal, no paperwork. Then who approved his building access, his badge, facilities? Probably, I don't know. Then we are the breach, she said. Not Donna. Not even Chase, technically. You gave an unvetted outsider access during an acquisition. Clause 7 doesn't care if it's your blood relative or the janitor. It only cares if there's reputational harm. And this is front-page embarrassment. At that moment, Martin's phone lit up. A message from the buyer's rep. 2 words, termination review. He didn't read it out loud. He didn't have to. The implosion had begun. It wasn't dramatic. There was no shouting, no windows blown out, just the quiet suffocation of money fleeing the room. Every minute, another partner peeled away. Every hour, another silence from the buyer grew longer. And every second, one truth became clearer. The woman they'd ignored, who never demanded credit, who never raised her voice, who simply forwarded an email and walked away, she hadn't just left. She detonated the only bridge they had left standing. The boardroom was sealed tighter than a submarine at crushed depth. No assistants, no laptops. Just the board, 2 lawyers, and a single printed agenda that might as well have read, "Burn the house to save the porch." At 9:01 a.m., Harold Kessler opened the meeting with 3 words, "Let's get surgical." No one said a thing. The air was thick with that particular brand of professional dread, the kind where people wore $4,000 suits to cast $400 million decisions. The kind of silence that only comes before a head is cleanly severed. First item, Chase. "Let the minutes reflect," Harold said, that effective immediately. Chase Vance is banned from all company premises, systems, and communications. Unanimous, no hesitation, not even from Martin. Second item, Martin. Gloria spoke next, calm as a sniper. "Mr. Vance, based on the material breach initiated under your leadership, the board is recommending administrative leave, effective immediately, pending investigation." Martin opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. "Respectfully, I believe I've been scapegoated. You gave your unvetted son access during a 9-figure acquisition," Cynthia said, not even looking up from her notes. "That's not scapegoating, that's self-inflicted immolation." A vote was called. 7 hands raised. Martin didn't raise his. He didn't have to. By 9:08 a.m., he was escorted from the room by HR. Badge disabled. Calendar access revoked. A single cardboard box waiting at his office door like a quiet tombstone. They didn't wait for the echoes to fade. Harold turned to the group. "Next motion, contact Donna Moore." Cynthia pulled out her phone, already sent the request. She responded, wants it in writing. They drafted the email together, every sentence agonized over like a hostage negotiation. Subject, request for clarification and re-engagement. Donna. Board would like to request your participation in a confidential clarification session regarding your systems integration plan and associated IP rights. We understand recent events have caused strain, but we believe your expertise is critical to mitigating damage. Please let us know your availability for a virtual discussion at your earliest convenience. Sent, delivered, read. The reply came within 10 minutes, short, clean, unmistakable. My intent was to prevent damage. Your son beat me to it, no greeting, no sign-off, just the truth, weaponized. The room fell silent, again. It was Harold who finally spoke. "Well, I guess she's not coming back with cookies and hugs." Laughter, cold, joyless, nervous. The kind you cough out when the guillotine misses your neck. But the truth sat in the center of the room like a goddamn monument. Donna hadn't just protected herself. She'd protected the company better than any of them. She had laid out a perfect fallback path. They hadn't taken it, they'd taken Martin's. Now they were on their knees, offering her power they should have granted months ago. "Do we negotiate?" one board member asked, still holding hope like a sandcastle in high tide. "No," said Cynthia. "We concede." "She hasn't made a demand," Gloria added. "She doesn't have to," Harold replied. That was the demand. They sat there, collectively realizing they'd tried to replace the backbone of the company with a son who spelled logistics with a Z on Twitter. Now the woman they'd sidelined had all the leverage. She had the code, she had the legal standing, she had the buyer's respect. And now she had their silence, their fear, their full, undivided attention. The blood had been mopped up, the votes cast, the bodies metaphorically buried. But Donna, she hadn't even raised her voice. She just replied to the email and smiled somewhere far away where chaos couldn't reach her. The virtual meeting room opened with a polite chime like any other. But everyone present knew it wasn't. On one side, the full board of directors, carefully coiffed and stone-faced, each of them sitting a little straighter than usual. On the other, a representative from Luxtec Industrial Holdings, tight-lipped, impeccably dressed, and clearly there to decide whether the ashes of this acquisition could still be sculpted into something usable. And then Donna appeared. No fanfare, no makeup crew. Just her webcam angled slightly off-center, showing a clean room behind her and a half-empty mug in front. She didn't speak. She didn't wave. She just looked into the camera, still as ever, like a surgeon prepping for a final incision. The buyer's rep broke the silence. "Miss Moore," he said, "thank you for agreeing to meet." Donna gave a single nod. That was it. He continued, "I'll be direct. Luxtech is still interested in your system. We believe in its integrity despite the complications on your former employer's end. He paused, but she didn't fill the space. So he asked plainly, would you be willing to license your system to us independently, directly through your LLC? Donna didn't blink, she didn't flinch. She just said yes. A pause. The board collectively exhaled too soon. Then Donna added, triple the original licensing rate. Cynthia tried to interject, but the buyer's rep raised a hand. And Donna said, I want a seat on the board, not advisory, full voting rights or no deal. Silence, long, thick silence. The buyer's rep turned to the board. Well, there were no objections, not now. Not after the month they'd had. Not after the sleepless nights and investor exodus and humiliating press leaks. It was only the sound of Harold Kessler quietly muttering, motion to approve. Seconded, Gloria said, passed, Cynthia confirmed. Donna didn't react, she didn't thank them, didn't smirk. She simply nodded again and clicked leave meeting without a word. The call ended. That afternoon, Martin Vance's termination was finalized, quietly. The press release used the usual fluff, pursuing new opportunities, grateful for his service, blah, blah, blah. Internally, it was less poetic. His access was revoked. His name wiped from the company's Slack. His email forwarded to IT. His photo, once framed in the executive hallway, was taken down and replaced with a generic stock image of a warehouse drone. The company rebooted, this time under new leadership, new structure, and new terms. Donna didn't return as an employee. She didn't want the parking space or the corner office or the catered board lunches. She wanted ownership. And she got it. Across the industry, the message rippled quietly but powerfully. Donna Moore wasn't just back, she was the system now. And if you wanted access to the crown jewel of logistics tech, you came to her. By dusk, she was back on her porch. A storm rolled in over the fields, quiet thunder tapping somewhere far off. She sat with a blanket over her lap, the same mug from the meeting now filled with jasmine tea. The wind carried the scent of rain and just a hint of salt from the old tears she never let fall. Her laptop buzzed beside her. Another consulting request. Then another and another, from startups, from global giants, from firms that had once passed her over for flashier names, now emailing with subject lines like urgent, integration help needed. She didn't smile. She just sipped her tea and watched the storm roll in. She never shouted, never made a scene, never slammed a door. She just forwarded one email and waited. Big thanks for watching, you sneaky seniors. Subscribe to keep the coffee pot brewing revenge. Your ex-colleagues won't know what hit him.